Please be seated. President of the Caribbean Development Bank, distinguished speakers, strategic advisory team members, Caribbean Development Bank staff, and members of the media, good morning and welcome to the Caribbean Development Bank's 2025 Annual News Conference. We are live from Bridgetown, Barbados. My name is Valerie. I am the Director of Communications and Corporate Affairs at the bank, and I will be moderating today's event. We are thrilled to have you join us as we discuss our path to resilience and transformation in the Caribbean. We have a lineup of distinguished speakers who will share insights into our strategies and goals for the coming years. Today's news conference has three parts. The first one being the formal presentations, followed by a Q&A segment, followed by one-on-one interviews. So without any further ado, let's begin with our first presentation titled Rebirth, Innovate, Transform and Thrive for a Resilient Future. It is my pleasure to introduce the seventh President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Mr. Daniel Best.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to everyone joining us today, whether you're here with us in person or tuning in virtually. This morning, I have the privilege and responsibility of sharing with the people of the Caribbean and persons interested in our region's development some highlights of the bank's operations in 2024, as well as my vision for the bank and the Caribbean for a thriving future. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe firmly in the mission and purpose of this bank. At the core of our work is a relentless drive to reduce poverty and transform lives through sustainable, resilient, and inclusive development. This commitment is woven into each loan, grant, research project, and piece of policy advice we provide. Every engagement is guided by questions such as, how is this reducing poverty? How will this transform lives? How will this propel the Caribbean forward? We are the only indigenous multilateral development bank in the region, dedicating to serving our Caribbean people. Our existence is rooted in making a positive, lasting impact on the communities we serve. In 2024, we approved US $304 million and disbursed $323 million in both loans and grants. But you will hear more about that from our acting director of the projects department. Ladies and gentlemen, while these investments will go a long way towards enhancing the lives of Caribbean people, I would like to highlight just one example of our responsiveness. When Hurricane Beryl devastated sections of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada, within 72 hours of the storm, CDB deployed personnel to affected areas to provide emergency support and approved a US $5.5 million relief package to each country. As we look forward to the future with all its uncertainties, but more so, its opportunities, I can think of no other word that encapsulates my vision for the bank than rebirth. Rebirth signals the bank's renewed focus on delivering excellence to the people of this region. We will practice excellence in each stage of every process, whether we are providing policy advice, appraising and implementing projects in our countries, or formulating country engagement strategies. As we support our Caribbean in the march towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, excellence will be our hallmark. This excellence and renewed commitment to the people of the region has never been more appropriate than now. Our region faces uncertainties that we have never before contemplated. Geopolitical tensions arising from inward-looking or nationalistic policies have the potential to stymie trade and growth. And the withdrawal of financial aid and technical cooperation places our already vulnerable populations at even greater risk. Friends, the Caribbean Development Bank has been engaging in regional discussions to better understand the scale and the scope of the challenges confronting our clients and shareholders. And we stand ready to support the people of the region as they navigate these uncertain times. The bank recognizes that it cannot address the region's issues by itself. And so, partnerships and resource mobilization will be key tools in our arsenal. In the spirit of partnership and resource mobilization, it gives me great pleasure to announce that we concluded negotiations with our contributors for the replenishment of our largest pool of concessional resources, our Special Development Fund. After more than a year of discussions, we agreed a US $460 million program for the 11th cycle of the fund. This historic $460 million program comprises grants and concessional loans that will see the bank play an even greater role in addressing poverty alleviation and human development across our borrowing member countries. This 11th cycle covers the period from 2025 to 2028 and aims to boost environmental resilience with at least 35% of resources targeted towards climate financing. This will support adaptation and mitigation projects, post-disaster interventions, disaster risk management, and biodiversity preservation. Production resilience to strengthen private sector development and improve economic infrastructure. Social resilience to enhance educational outcomes and social protection systems. And on this, in recognition of Haiti's unique challenges, we will increase our support to them to maximize development impact and foster long-term resilience. There's also institutional resilience to strengthen our country's implementation capacity and financial resilience to enhance our borrowing member countries' financial capacity to withstand shocks and support sustained growth and development. This US $77 million increase from the previous cycle highlights the enduring dedication of our donors and contributors who, despite a difficult global economic landscape, have demonstrated unwavering support for the Caribbean's sustainable development. A key aspect of the fund is its increased emphasis on climate resilience through stepped-up support for adaptation and mitigation measures. Guided by the principles of gender equality, good governance, and innovation, the fund will further advance regional cooperation, integration, and digitalization, accelerating our collective progress towards a robust and sustainable future. Since 1984, the fund has injected over US $2.1 billion into social development initiatives, tangibly improving quality of life for citizens across the Caribbean. Over a 10-year period, over 343 students experienced enhanced educational opportunities through improved facilities. Approximately 11,100 agricultural shareholders received training in production technologies. Over 931,000 people benefited from significantly upgraded road networks, and almost 94,000 households gained access to water and sanitation services. This program, along with the other resources of the bank, will be critical in supporting our vision of rebirth for the institution. The vision rests on three main pillars: innovate, transform, and thrive. By innovating in our sectors of engagement, we will pioneer cutting-edge solutions and leverage new technologies to address complex development challenges. The transformation pillar is internal to the bank. It speaks fundamentally to reshaping processes and systems to enhance efficiency, inclusivity, and sustainability. and by thinking differently about how we approach development problems, by relooking how we organize ourselves to deliver, we are able to contribute to a thriving region. But let's unpack each of these pillars a bit more. Innovation is the heartbeat of progress. With this in mind, we will prioritize data for development as a key area for informed decision-making in a dynamic Caribbean. Additionally, we must innovate our bank's financing solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, we will dedicate efforts to collaborating with other partners, creating new and innovative financial products that enable us to mobilize resources at scale for those in need. This has already begun in earnest, and we hope to launch at least 3 new products this year dedicated to accelerating the just green transition and support de-risking in the private sector. As I alluded to just now, supporting the energy transition is critical for us. We will focus on delivering access to reliable, sustainable energy to the region while prioritizing energy access for underserved communities. We must also devote our attention to addressing food security. Look, we saw firsthand during the COVID-19 pandemic the risk to food security as global supply chains were disrupted, but this is an issue that the region can address. To unlock the potential for building supply chains, we need a coordinated effort to upgrade our regulatory, institutional, and infrastructure frameworks. The bank stands willing to support the region in this effort. Education is essential, and we commit to support the delivery of quality learning outcomes to every Caribbean student. However, it is not simply enough to educate our citizens. We have to ensure that Caribbean economies provide our educated young people with opportunities to earn a decent living in a safe environment and with access to leisure opportunities that make our region the preferred place for them to live. Ladies and gentlemen, we will work with our membership to support the birth of a new, dynamic, diverse, internationally competitive private sector. A region where every citizen lives free from the fear of violence, the sustainable development of Haiti and the economic and social upliftment of its people, trade facilitation and interconnectivity through regional cooperation and integration, and gender equality and diversity, equity, and inclusion across all strata of Caribbean life. Under the pillar of transformation, we will usher in a new age of implementation and delivery by, among other things, adopting first principles thinking. We must enhance what drives client focus and delivery and discard value-depleting layers. We have to increase the scale, speed, and effectiveness of climate and disaster risk reduction financing for our borrowing member countries. We can no longer be surprised when we are impacted by a natural hazard event. The region, our region, is 7 times more likely to be impacted by a natural hazard event than a larger country. But you will hear more about this from Ms. Isaac on what we are doing to enhance disaster risk management in our countries and to mitigate the impacts of climate change. The last pillar, thrive, is the ultimate goal. Thriving means not just surviving, but excelling. With a vibrant, resilient economy, healthy environment, and a society where everyone has the chance to succeed. But more specifically, for me, it means the seamless movement of goods and services across the region and extra-regionally. The CARICOM target of 25% reduction in food importation being achieved, low levels of unemployment, declining incidence of violent crime, a level of human development that is at the highest level globally. Ladies and gentlemen, our team at CDB is energized, engaged, and committed to realizing the best version of the bank for the region. As one Prime Minister said to me, CDB must do more, better, faster, and we accept that challenge. The good people of this Caribbean region deserve nothing less. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Thank you, President Best. Moving on to our second presentation, our Director of Economics, Mr. Ian Durant, will cover the 2024 Economic Review and 2025 projections.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my privilege to present an overview of the region's economic performance in 2024 and the outlook for 2025. In this presentation, we will examine key economic trends from the past year and highlight areas of notable progress. Additionally, we will assess potential risk and opportunities that may impact our region as we move further into 2025. Finally, we will identify the areas that require our continued attention as we navigate an evolving global and regional landscape. The region has largely emerged from some of the most severe economic shocks in recent history. COVID-19, supply chain disruptions, exacerbated by geopolitical tensions, and the high inflation that followed. These global headwinds tested our resilience, but our borrowing member countries have weathered the storm and continued to advance steadily. In 2024, regional output, excluding Guyana, is estimated to have expanded by 1.7%, with 15 countries now surpassing pre-pandemic real output levels. This performance represents a slowdown from growth of 2.5% recorded in 2023, reflecting the diminishing momentum from the post-pandemic recovery. Growth rates, however, varied across borrowing member countries, with Guyana and Haiti standing out as outliers. Guyana was again the standout performer, with its economy surging by 43.5%. Fueled by increased oil production and continued expansion in its non-energy sectors. As a result, when we include Guyana's performance, regional growth rises to 8.8% in 2024, up from 6.6% in 2023, highlighting the country's significant influence on regional economic growth. On the other hand, Haiti remains in crisis. The country continued to grapple with political instability, escalating gang violence, and high inflation, contributing to its sixth consecutive economic contraction. For most other countries, growth was moderate. Commodity exporting economies like Suriname and Trinidad and Tobago continued their modest recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, service exporting economies, many of which have exceeded their pre-pandemic output levels, grew at a slower pace of 1.6% in 2024, down from 2.8% in 2023, as economies settled into more normal patterns of activity. The tourism industry remained the key driver of growth. Stayover arrivals reached 6.8 million in the first 3 quarters of the year, with more than half of borrowing member countries surpassing pre-pandemic levels, and some even setting new records. This performance was driven by strong demand from source markets such as the United States, increased airlift, sustained marketing efforts, and hosting of events and festivals across the region. Along with a strong tourism performance, construction activity also provided a major boost to economic growth. Governments across the region prioritized investments in critical infrastructure, including ports, roads, schools, hospitals, and utilities. At the same time, private sector investments helped drive growth in tourist-related construction, with new hotels and commercial properties under development. While the region made progress, 2024 was also a sobering reminder of our acute vulnerability to natural hazards. Hurricane Beryl, the earliest Category 5 hurricane on record in the Atlantic, had varying impacts on several countries. Grenada's northern islands of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, as well as St. Vincent and the Grenadines' southern islands, were hardest hit. Barbados, Jamaica, and the Cayman Islands also felt its impact. This devastating event served as a stark reminder of our region's ongoing exposure to extreme weather events. On a positive note, inflation continued to moderate in 2024, following global trends. However, price levels remain elevated compared with pre-pandemic times, leading several governments to maintain cost of living support measures introduced in prior years. Additionally, unemployment rates continue to decline across most borrowing member countries for which data is available. Stronger economic activity helped improve fiscal performance across the region. Most governments achieved primary surpluses, mainly reflecting higher tax revenue collections. However, expenditures also increased, driven by recurrent costs, including public sector wage hikes in most countries and higher capital investments in infrastructure. While debt levels rose by 3.3%, nominal GDP growth contributed to a decline in the region's debt-to-GDP ratio, which fell to 50.9% from 55.6% in 2023. Nevertheless, debt ratios in nearly half of borrowing member countries remain above 60% of GDP, with ongoing risks to debt sustainability. Governments, however, continue to take steps to achieve or fortify fiscal and debt sustainability, with several of them being able to reduce their debt-to-GDP ratios considerably. These efforts, combined with sustained economic growth, resulted in 5 countries, Anguilla, Barbados, Belize, Jamaica, and Suriname, receiving upgrades to their sovereign credit rating in 2024. In the external sector, higher import payments in some countries dampened the positive impact of increased tourism receipts on their current accounts. However, reserve positions remain healthy, with almost all countries maintaining balances above 3 months of merchandise imports. The financial sector remained broadly stable, supporting favorable credit conditions. Now, looking ahead, regional growth is expected to remain moderate in 2025. Excluding Guyana, the Caribbean Development Bank projects regional growth of 2.5%, with performance varying across borrowing member countries. Guyana's expansion is expected to slow to 11.9%, following its rapid growth in oil production in 2024. Nevertheless, the country's performance will remain a key contributor to the region's economic growth. Hence, including all 19 borrowing member countries, the region is forecasted to grow by 4.6%. Among other commodity exporters, growth is expected to gain momentum as they continue to recover, while service exporting economies are projected to expand by 2.2%. Tourism is likely to remain a key driver of economic activity. Construction, supported by public and private investments, is also anticipated to contribute positively to near-term economic performance. On the fiscal front, most governments are expected to maintain primary surpluses, which should further strengthen debt positions in 2025. While the Caribbean region is on track for continued growth in 2025, there are several risks that could alter this trajectory. Internationally, geopolitical tensions, along with a resurgence of protectionist policies, could elevate uncertainty in global markets, disrupt supply chains, and exert upward pressure on commodity prices. Additionally, policy shifts in the United States, including evolving policy priorities, adds to the uncertainty of the outlook. Potential slowdowns in major trading partners, particularly the United States, could dampen demand for regional exports. Domestically, the ability to execute critical infrastructure projects on time will be crucial. Delays could hold back growth in industries like construction, energy, and transportation. Moreover, Our ever-present vulnerability to natural hazards remains a significant concern. As climate change intensifies, the frequency and severity of extreme weather events increases, and the risk of disruptions to economic activity grows. These natural hazards could not only disrupt economic activity, but in some cases may reverse developmental gains and endanger fiscal and debt sustainability. Adding to these risks, with elections anticipated in many countries in 2025 and 2026, there's an increased likelihood of fiscal pressures and policy shifts that could slow reform momentum. Ladies and gentlemen, for many of our countries, sustaining higher growth remains a challenge, burdened by persistent structural challenges. Yet higher growth is necessary to reduce poverty, bridge inequalities, and elevate the standard of living for all citizens and residents of the region. Higher growth is essential, not merely to endure, but to progress. The path forward demands bold action to address these challenges, build resilience, and seize opportunities for inclusive and sustainable growth. To this end, the development imperatives for 2025 and the medium term are clear. First, as we just heard from the President, we must build resilience to climate change and natural hazards. Hurricane Beryl's devastation was a stark reminder of our region's fragility. We must redouble efforts to climate-proof infrastructure, improve disaster preparedness, and integrate climate considerations into every facet of development planning. Second, we must address our overdependence on tourism for foreign exchange earnings. Achieving the necessary diversification requires us to build dynamic, internationally competitive economies. In this regard, we need to modernize our road and port infrastructure in a coordinated way that allows us to trade among ourselves and to build up potential regional supply chains and connect with international markets. However, it is not enough to build out infrastructure. We also need to modernize and digitalize the regulatory and support systems to reduce the cost of navigating these business processes. 24 operations at ports, electronic port community systems, coordinated sanitary and phytosanitary standards, cold storage facilities, and access to appropriate types and levels of finance are just some of the needs in building out a healthy ecosystem for competitiveness and diversification. Finally, fiscal discipline, risk management, and strong institutions remain cornerstones of sustainable growth. Maintaining prudent public fiscal management while prioritizing investments in productive infrastructure and the social well-being of our people is critical. Balancing these needs will require visionary leadership and unwavering commitment. The road ahead is challenging, but it is also rich with promise. The Caribbean Development Bank stands as a steadfast partner to the region in this journey. We are committed to supporting our board member countries as they pursue these imperatives, providing not only financial resources, but also technical expertise and strategic guidance. As part of this commitment, the bank will publish a Caribbean Economic Review and Outlook in April 2025. This publication will provide deeper insights into the trends, the challenges, and opportunities discussed today. I am confident that this publication will serve as a critical resource to inform our collective efforts as we chart our path forward towards sustainable development. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durant. Next, our Acting Director of Projects, Mr. O'Reilly Lewis, will provide a review of our 2024 project performance and highlight the areas of operational focus for 2025.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here today as we take a closer look at the impact of the bank's work in the region. In this presentation, I will share how CDB is supporting the development aspirations of our client countries in close collaboration with our partners. I will focus on our key achievements in 2024, milestones that underscore the bank's commitment to catalyzing sustainable and inclusive growth. As highlighted by President Best, the bank both approved and disbursed over $300 million United States dollars across coastal protection, transport, renewable energy, education, private sector, and agriculture. Strategic partnerships amplified our reach, with a $100 million line of credit from the European Investment Bank to strengthen water, wastewater, and solid waste infrastructure, and Canadian $58 million from Global Affairs Canada to accelerate the Caribbean shift towards resilient, gender-equitable energy systems. In the area of sustainable energy, Dominica's 10 megawatt geothermal power project is a transformative project not just for Dominica, but for geothermal energy development in the region. This signifies a massive leap towards energy security. The project is jointly financed by funds channeled through the Green Climate Fund, the Inter-American Bank's Sustainable Energy Facility for the Eastern Caribbean, as well as the Government of Canada. By 2026, the plant will transform Dominica's energy security, lower electricity production costs, and create new opportunities for economic growth. In Haiti, we approved a $5 million grant for rural electrification project from the Special Development Fund. The initiative represents the bank's first energy sector investment in Haiti. This project has the potential to transform the lives of thousands by providing over 2,000 new connections to affordable electricity, eliminating reliance on candles, kerosene, wood, charcoal for lighting and cooking. We continue to deliver real impact through the bank's flagship poverty reduction program, the Basic Needs Trust Fund. We successfully completed 37 initiatives focused on uplifting the region's most vulnerable communities. Over 4,750 people now benefit from improved roads. More than 900 households enjoy better access to clean water, and 271 teachers and principals are now equipped to support students with learning disabilities. In education, loans totaling $60 million finance strategic investment in Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and St. Lucia. The projects will expand access to inclusive learning opportunities for students, including those with special education needs. They will also strengthen climate resilience education infrastructure and support the integration of digital technology into classrooms to enhance teaching and learning outcomes. In addition, through our Special Development Fund, $13 million in grant financing will improve access to quality primary education for poor and vulnerable communities in Haiti. The bank also convened successfully the inaugural Regional Symposium and Policy Dialogue in Transforming Education. Over 3 days, more than 150 stakeholders explored strategies to improve education quality and delivery. Discussions addressed decolonizing education systems, fostering safe and inclusive learning environments, leveraging AI and digital technologies, and tackling other critical challenges in Caribbean education. A key outcome was the endorsement of the Agenda for Action, which outlines strategic action to improve learning outcomes and workforce readiness. In agriculture, With global supply chain disruptions threatening food and nutrition security across the region, the bank strengthened its investments. In Jamaica, $26 million in loan financing was approved to expand the Essex Valley Agriculture Development Project. This loan supplemented the initial grant funding provided by the United Kingdom Caribbean Infrastructure Fund. The upgraded project will improve the social and economic prospects of Essex Valley and environments through the provision of irrigation for agriculture, improved farm roads, and infrastructure to facilitate compliance with internationally recognized food safety standards. In neighboring Haiti, we provided $7 million in grant for phase 2 of the community-based agriculture and rural development project. This will increase productivity and market access for over 3,000 citizens to benefit from improved food security, poverty reduction, and greater climate resilience. Moving to the government to upgrade the John Compton Dam's water supply and transmission system. This project will increase the resilience and efficiency of the potable water supply for over 33,000 households. The loan was secured through joint financing from the governments of France and Italy. CDB advanced coastal protection efforts across its borrowing member countries, strengthening resilience against shoreline hazards and climate change. A major achievement was the approval of $15 million for the Sortes Coastal Protection Project in Grenada. This project will stabilize the coastline, safeguard livelihoods, and enhance resilience for more than 11,000 people. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, an additional loan of $13 million was provided for the Sandy Bay Sea Defense Resilience Project. This project will improve long-term resilience by reducing the risk of loss of life, physical and economic damage, and post-disaster recovery time. Funding partners include the governments of Italy's program to support sustainable development in the Caribbean community and the French Development Agency's second credit facility agreement with the bank. Further strengthening regional coastal resilience, a $1.4 million grant was approved to support pre-investment studies in climate resilience coastal protection around Kingston Harbor in Jamaica. This initiative will lay the groundwork for a larger intervention benefiting over 600,000 people. Also in Jamaica, the bank backed the second Caribbean Coastal Conference, which brought together representatives from the public and private entities and multilateral organizations. Discussions focused on the blue economy, financing options for climate change adaptation, coastal governance, and shoreline protection. Our commitment to the private sector growth was demonstrated by approvals of financing for various initiatives, including 1, $20 million in blended credit to the Development Finance Corporation in Belize for student loans, low-income housing, renewable energy, and micro, small, and medium-sized entities in agriculture. 2, a $30 million line of credit to support private sector-led infrastructure and energy projects. And 3, $9.9 million for financing micro, small, and medium-sized entities, including capacity building initiatives. The She Trades Hub continues to be a catalyst for women's economic empowerment in the region. In 2024, we made significant strides by establishing 7 focal points across the Caribbean, strengthening regional support for women entrepreneurs, training 75 policymakers on gender mainstreaming in trade, as well as 687 women-led businesses in export readiness, logistics, and finance, and approving $500,000 to the Trades Caribbean Grow and Grow Grant Fund to benefit 20 lead women businesses. The bank remains committed to improving access to finance for women entrepreneurs and is a global champion for gender equality. As chair of the Multilateral Development Bank Working Group on Gender, we look forward to hosting the 2025 Global Summit in Bridgetown later this year. In closing, I quote our President Daniel Best, who captured the urgency of this moment in his introductory address to our staff. The Caribbean stands at a pivotal juncture where the urgency to drive sustainable development, economic diversification, climate resilience has never been greater. The region faces pressing challenges from the impacts of climate change to economic vulnerabilities, which demand immediate and decisive action. CDB must rise to this occasion, leveraging its unique position to catalyze transformative change for all Caribbean nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Finally, we have Ms. Valerie Isaac, our Division Chief of Environmental Sustainability, and she will speak about our strategies for resilience building in the region.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Today I will discuss CDB's strategy for building resilience to climate change and disasters in the Caribbean. I will also share some information about our achievements in 2024 and plans for 2025 and beyond. The Caribbean is one of the world's most vulnerable regions. Climate change and frequent natural hazards continue to disrupt our economies, ecosystems, and livelihoods, disproportionately impacting the most vulnerable populations. Year after year, countries face severe impacts. We all recall Haiti's earthquakes in 2010 and 2021, Hurricanes Maria and Irma in 2017, Soufrière volcanic eruption in 2021, Hurricane Durant in 2019, and of course, Hurricane Beryl in 2024. And these are just a few examples of the hazards which impact us. And noting that hazards are expected or predicted to increase and intensify, the need for resilience has never been more pressing. For our countries, CDB's support is vital to enhance the climate and disaster resilience. And resilience, ladies and gentlemen, are not merely part of our work. It is the foundation of everything that we do. Guided by our current strategic plan, disaster risk management strategy, and climate resilience strategy, we have adopted a holistic approach that integrates disaster risk reduction and climate considerations into development planning in our borrowing member countries. Our approach encompasses accessing concessional climate financing, supporting sound macroeconomic policies, climate-proofing infrastructure, and developing sustainable energy solutions, all of which will strengthen the Caribbean's capacity to withstand an increasingly uncertain future. The bank is also committed to forging new partnerships and strengthening existing ones to support and enhance the region's resilience efforts. So what were some of our achievements in 2024? In 2024, we approved over 15 million United States dollars in grants for 21 technical assistance projects to strengthen disaster risk management and climate resilience in borrowing member countries. Beneficiaries included both national counterparts and regional agencies. Funded through the bank's Special Development Fund and the European Union Finance Climate Action for Resilience Enhancement Program, these technical assistance projects will improve disaster risk governance, financial response mechanisms, early warning systems, and infrastructure resilience. we helped 7 countries cover their 2024-2025 premium payments to the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility. Hurricane Beryl underscored the importance of this risk pooling mechanism. The Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility disbursed approximately $72 million to Grenada, Jamaica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines, offering essential post-disaster relief, of which $5.6 million was allocated to social protection systems. The Social Protection Initiative was funded by the CDB, Global Affairs Canada, the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, the World Food Programme, and the participating countries. CDB also directly contributed to post-disaster efforts by providing a total of $10 million in concessional financing for immediate response loans and $600,000 in grants to Grenada and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. These funds provide transitional safety net support for the livelihoods of the most poor and vulnerable. They also assist with restoring vital infrastructure necessary for the resumption of social and economic activity. We expanded our disaster risk financing instruments to include a disaster policy operation and a contingent emergency response component tool, both of which we launched last year. These instruments reduce the financial burden on the borrowing member countries and provide quick access to funds after disasters, helping governments and communities respond more effectively. More broadly, we committed approximately $101.5 million in climate finance in 2024, representing 33.5% of CDB's own resources for the year. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a significant step forward for the bank. So while we succeeded in increasing our climate finance in 2024, we are ready to achieve even more in 2025. In fact, the bank has already approved over $70 million in climate finance for the current year. So to sustain this momentum, we are pursuing a multi-pronged strategy to further enhance and expand our support. And I just want to highlight a few examples for you. Firstly, we received approval from the Green Climate Fund to expand our project development capacity to $250 million per program, 5 times, ladies and gentlemen, our previous accreditation limit. This enables us to develop and deliver large-scale climate resilience programs. CDB is also on track to receive its first full funding proposals for Green Climate Fund approval in 2025. The bank has established an ambitious pipeline that will lead to further GCF or Green Climate Fund approvals in 2026 to 2028. This is expected to result in more than $750 million in concessional climate finance for resilient transportation, agriculture and food security, water and energy for the Caribbean over the medium term. Secondly, our board of directors recently approved the CDB Climate Change Project Preparation Fund to assist countries to design and prepare high-impact climate adaptation and mitigation projects and programs. This will enable faster delivery of climate-resilient outcomes. The fund is currently being operationalized and capitalized, and it is expected to be available by the third quarter of this year. Furthermore, the bank has secured a grant from the Adaptation Fund to support climate resilience in the agriculture sectors in Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In addition, the Adaptation Fund, under its new global locally led aggregator program, invited CDB to prepare a regional project to scale up community-led resilience building. And we will be conducting this project in 5 borrowing member countries. This will target hazard risk management, disaster risk mitigation, ecosystem protection, and sustainable livelihoods in watersheds and coastal areas. In addition to these examples, We continue to strengthen our partnerships with various entities. We are working with other multilateral development banks and bilateral partners to improve access to financial and technical support in the coming years. Concurrently, CDB is working with our regional agencies to support them to provide fit-for-purpose assistance to our borrowing member countries. This includes the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, the Caribbean Institute for Hydrology and Meteorology, the University of the West Indies, and the OECS Eastern Caribbean States Commission. So as we reflect on CDB's progress in 2024 and the plans for the years ahead, one thing remains really clear. Building climate and disaster resilience requires a holistic approach and strong collaboration. The challenges faced in the Caribbean are complex, and they demand strategic and coordinated and bold actions. So what would success look like? Well, first we think success would look like climate and disaster resilience is integrated into all aspects of our lending and operations. Our climate finance flows increase beyond the levels we have achieved in years past, and as we are on track to do in 2025. New tools like our Climate Change Project Preparation Fund adopted, and ladies and gentlemen, most importantly, our clients are better prepared to respond to disasters more effectively and recover from them more swiftly. As our president has emphasized, resilience encompasses more than just financing. It involves people, communities, and pursuing a sustainable future for everyone. We pledge to support every borrowing member country in the battle against climate change and disasters. Although the path ahead is challenging, we can transform these challenges through innovation, partnerships, and determination into opportunities for a safer, more prosperous, and resilient future. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Isaac. We now move to the Q&A segment of this news release. So I would like to invite journalists attending in person and virtually to direct their questions on the topics discussed today to any of our esteemed speakers. Please raise your hand, and once recognized, kindly state your name, your affiliation, and please also indicate whom your question is directed to. For online journalists, please drop your questions in the chat and we will ask them on your behalf, as we aim to address as many inquiries as possible. Please keep your questions concise. The floor is now open.
Good morning. Is it still morning? Good morning. Shanna Moore, Barbados Today. My question is to Mr. Best. You outlined a need for urgent economic diversification and also for the unlocking of regional capital. What are the biggest hurdles or obstacles preventing immediate action, and how is the CDB working with regional governments just to overcome these?
Thank you very much, Shannon. It's interesting that my first question should be one on economics, but I have a director of economics next to me, but I'll make a start at it. Look, I think we are aware that regionally we have $6 billion in excess liquidity in our commercial banking system. What is not shared as frequently, though, is that we have approximately $10.8 billion in unmet demand. So we have entrepreneurs, we have developers, we have innovators in our region with ideas to move the region forward, and we have excess liquidity, and the two aren't being aligned. So how do we fix that? It is not sufficient for us in the multilateral banking community, and specifically CDB, to boast about our AA+ rating. We are very, very proud of it. We need to bring that to bear into this space. And one of the areas that we will be doing later this year is in the development of guarantee schemes to provide cover for the commercial banking sector through the development of trade facilitation program and also a portfolio, a partial credit guarantee. So we'll be providing guarantees and counter guarantees to both commercial banks, but also our central banking system to de-risk some of these potential investments, to get some of that US $6 billion moving, but importantly, to get some of the $10.8 billion moving from ideas into actual action and development imperatives. As I'm sure our Director of Economics would speak to, in seeking to do that, what are some of the barriers? Well, you would have mentioned access to finance being one, the technical assistance to build and develop business cases for some of these, the regulatory frameworks. So what we will be doing, along with the guarantee system, is also intervening at every point in the value chain, whether it is technical assistance to our regulatory authorities and frameworks, to develop more harmonized frameworks across our region, and training of our entrepreneurs. Admittedly, some of these ideas need a bit more baking. And in doing that, there are three pillars, and I'm going to stop here. I don't want to go on too long. Three areas that will drive competitiveness such that our entrepreneurs can compete on a global stage. Price, quality, and reliability. If the price is right, if the quality is such of a standard that it can be shipped anywhere in the world, and if consumers know they can get it this week and next week and the week after, your product will succeed. Whether it is, and I'm going to shamelessly quote from our Director of Economics, whether it's cassava chips or electronic chips, your product will succeed. And this is where the bank can bring in its expertise to bear in doing exactly what you asked for. I don't know if you want to add to that.
Much I can add, but I just want to emphasize that foreign exchange earnings are absolutely critical to the orderly operation of countries like ours. So when we talk about diversification, we're really talking about diversifying foreign exchange earnings to maintain orderly operation of our countries. And the foreign exchange earnings of our countries largely depend on natural endowments, whether it's touristic assets in 15 of our member countries or mineral extraction. So ultimately, what we want to encourage and to support is diversification beyond these specific industries. And doing that, as the President says, really depends on building competitive, dynamic economies. Economies that can deliver products at a price, at a reliability and a quality that the international market requires. Now, that requires an ecosystem. It's a vast ecosystem, and everything in that ecosystem is important. It requires quality infrastructure, whether it's ports, roads, cold storage facilities, but it also requires good institutions, solid institutions, whether these institutions are facilitating the private sector or they're regulating the private sector. They must be easy to navigate. And this basically requires things like digitalized processes and so on. And then, of course, the whole notion of access to finance. So ultimately, it's about creating that ecosystem that facilitates dynamic, competitive economies that can compete on the world stage.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, just to zoom in a bit more on Barbados, given the country's debt challenges and ongoing economic reforms, how is the CDB working with the government to ensure sustainable financing for developmental projects?
All right, so we are doing the same thing that we are doing for all of our countries, which is seeking to mobilize appropriately priced and adequately supplied resources. And we are doing that through every lever that we have. Our mobilization, our resource mobilization framework pretty much revolves around capital, it revolves around borrowings, market borrowings, but it also revolves around partnerships. And we are seeking to mobilize resources across all three of those dimensions of our resource mobilization framework. We talked about SDF, the Special Development Fund earlier, the President did. That's a set of partnerships through which we mobilize extremely concessional resources for our member countries. We talked about grants from the GCF, and in essence, what we are seeking to do is to ensure that Barbados and all of our member countries have access to concessional funds that do not impair their debt dynamics.
Thank you. We have another question.
Thank you. Good morning. Sean Cumberbatch from Nation Barbados. My first question is to President Best. You have set yourself some big targets, some big objectives in this rebirth you mentioned. And I'm wondering from the CDB as an organization, what changes are you going to be undertaking, if any, to ensure that you can meet these big objectives for your BMCs? Given that we all know it's no secret that last year was a challenging time for the organization.
Thanks, Sean. I think, as I mentioned, the first pillar is innovate, but you're touching on the second pillar, which is transform. Let's look inwardly. You mentioned is no secret about last year, but what's also no secret is that many of our policies and processes have been around when you and I were in short pants in primary school. We can't approach 2025 going into 2026 with the same policies, processes, and products that we have had for north of 50 years. That the world has changed completely. So we are in the bank taking a sobering look, and change is never easy. But we are taking a sobering look at how we develop new policies. How we, as I shared in the speech, remove value-depleting layers in our process to get to our countries faster, to move resources to our countries faster. And this is important because we are going to be driving partnerships in a much grander scale. You heard Ms. Isaac speak about our increased accreditation limit with GCF to $250 million. So we need to be far more agile as a bank. So we've already started looking at our processes, but also looking at new products. And we will be bringing 3 new financial products to the market, which I shared at Heads of Government. I touched a bit on it just now in terms of guarantees, but also in terms of mobility, e-mobility funds. So the structure of the bank, as we know it, needs to become more nimble. And this is what we've already started to undertake very early in my presidency. Thank you.
I have a second question, and that has to do with the implementation. I know at last year's news conference, it was mentioned that the bank would be working with your BMCs on this sole challenge of implementation. You're disbursing and approving a lot of resources, but then a lot of countries may not have that capacity to implement with the speed and efficiency which is required. So what are you doing in terms of improving that implementation aspect?
Yeah. So I'm going to invite our acting director of projects to speak to that because that sits squarely within the operations area. So I'm going to ask O'Reilly to respond to that.
Thank you for the question. And I think you introduced an extremely important concept in terms of the implementation, the absorptive capacity of countries to to meet the needs and to absorb the increased financing that we are seeking to provide. This is what we do every day in the bank in terms of how we engage with our client countries. So there's several levels to implementation and there's several layers of responsibility. There's parts of that responsibility that rest with the bank in terms of us being more nimble and more efficient and more responsive to the country's needs. And as President Best indicated, we are striving to improve those aspects within the bank. Then there's the aspects related to the country systems, where the countries, how they deal with things like procurement, decision-making, prioritizing, project preparation. Those aspects, we are also helping them improve their capacity with technical assistance programs and giving them policy advice on those aspects. And then there's the actual implementation where you have contractors, consultants, all of those things available, all of those professionals available. So even if you get all of those right and you have a poor performing contractor, for example, it's going to stymie the impact of the project, similarly with a consultant. So at every part of that chain, CDB is engaged with the client to help them make the right decisions in all aspects of that. In addition, to support the work that we're already doing, we are taking a higher level look at implementation challenges in the region. So we are conducting a study at this time that will look at all aspects of the project cycle chain and all the stakeholders involved in that project cycle, including CDB, our partners, and the countries. And the idea of this study is to help us to be more clinical and more focused on how we target our resources to solve the problems based on a country-specific basis. So it is not, there's no silver bullet, we know, and we know that this is not an easy task. This is something that plagues many of our countries and many of our development institutions. But we believe that we can play a significant part in improving that aspect of project cycle management in the region. And a small shift, a 10% improvement in implementation capacity will have massive development impacts in terms of our effectiveness in the region. So we are committed to partnering with the countries at all aspects of the project cycle to make them, to help us as a region to grow and improve how we implement projects.
Thank you. We have another question.
Thank you. Andrea Chisholm from Television Jamaica. Mr. Best, you alluded to it in your presentation. There has been a major policy shift in the United States dealing with immigration, trade, etc. First of all, what has been the CDB's preliminary assessment so far? And if you could state 2 top things that the organization will be doing differently to minimize any potential economic fallout in the region.
Thank you, Andrea. We have already done an analysis, an initial analysis, and I think we all appreciate the fact that to say the situation is fluid is a bit of an understatement, right? So we've done, our economics team has done an initial assessment. One of our early findings is that at this moment, there is approximately US $280 million in undisbursed obligations to the Caribbean from United States funding, whether it is USAID or other spaces. 80% of that is to Haiti. So this is not an immaterial situation that we're dealing with. Now, and the fact that the United States is not a member of the Caribbean Development Bank or doesn't contribute to our funds is called comfort, because we are of the Caribbean and we have a mandate to support the Caribbean. So what are we doing to respond to this? Well, firstly, we have already convened meetings with CARICOM agencies that are being directly impacted, such as SEDIMA, the OECS Secretariat, and others that are being directly impacted, to seek to determine which space CDB could respond better in. One that concerns me greatly, of course, is the matter of early warning systems and the technical support we get. Ms. Isaac mentioned it in her speech. Resilience is not just about funding, it's about impact. And we have within the bank the technical expertise to support in areas where there will be a gap in the United States support, not necessarily in funding, but in United States support. But secondly, I am particularly pleased, I know I said it in my speech, but I am particularly pleased that notwithstanding what we're seeing on the geopolitical landscape, our contributors sought to increase over the 10th cycle of the Special Development Fund for this 11th cycle, which was approved at the end of last week, by US $77 million. That's a record $460 million in funding for our Special Development Fund for the 11th cycle. These funds will go towards filling exactly what you are speaking about, responding to the most vulnerable in terms of early warning system, climate disaster mitigation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender equality. These are the spaces where our funds will I think, come in most handy at a time like this. And then finally, we need to further bolster partnerships, new partnerships. I think you may have seen on social media and other platforms that I've already started reaching out to some what we may term non-traditional partners. And in a few weeks' time, we will be traveling to some different spaces, and you'll see more about that. But we need to mobilize more resources for the region, not just for the bank, but to fill exactly the gap that you're speaking about. Because I mentioned $280 million, but I want us to consider how many lives, livelihoods, and life chances are being impacted by the absence of these resources. And we are prepared to step up with our traditional partners, with the SDF, and with new partners to respond to this gap. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a number of online questions, so let me take one last question from the room, and then I will ask online questions. Please go ahead.
Okay, good morning. Brittany, Channel 5, Belize. And my question is for Ms. Isaac. Earlier we mentioned that a lot of the economic growth is coming from industries like tourism, agriculture, trade, construction. What are we doing to ensure that the investments made into those areas are sustainable and contribute towards environmental resilience?
Thank you, Brittany. I will say two things. One, our environmental policies require that we ensure that the projects that we finance follow our guidelines. And one of that is all our projects are screened for environmental risks. They're also screened for climate risk, disaster risk. So that enables us to integrate these mitigation measures to deal with any potential things that may arise during project implementation or even post-project. So that's how we do it. Thanks.
Thank you. We have a question from an online journalist whose name is Khadija Ba from Starbrook News. The question is for President Best. Here is the question. Can you say what is the extent of China's role in CDB, and has there been any discussion on expanding this? President Best.
Thank you. Thank you. China is a member of the Caribbean Development Bank, just like any of the 27 other members of the bank. We have 28 members, and I'm pleased to report that at our pledging that would have occurred at the end of last week for the Special Development Fund, that the contributor for China issued a strong statement of support in the Special Development Fund and in the Caribbean Development Bank, and will be pledging later this year. So China's commitment to CDB and to the Caribbean and to Caribbean people remains steadfast. And as a result, China is also eligible for procurement opportunities and have benefited from procurement opportunities that have been extended as a result of financing of the institution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another question from Denis Chabrol from Demerara Waves. The question is for President Best. What is your assessment of the significant economic growth in Guyana, which is contributing to wider regional economic growth, contributing to actual human development in Guyana at the personal level? Is the question.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. And I'm going to start this one and invite our Director of Economics to come in. I had occasion, as part of my first official travel as president, to go to the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Was received warmly by President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali and his team, Dr. Ashley Singh as well. We had an incredible opportunity to open 2 schools in the Essequibo region. One focused on exceptional learners, students with special development needs, and another a primary school. But I saw there and heard from Dr. Ali, the One Guyana Digital School, which is a phenomenally innovative concept. And I'm tying it back to, Guyana benefiting from commodity resources and translating that into human capital development. So the One Guyana Digital School is a space in where learners in Guyana, by virtue of this digital platform, benefit from targeted pedagogy to their particular needs where they are in the learning cycle. I think that is absolutely incredible. And what Dr. Ali said is this is an initiative that they want to translate to the entire Caribbean. And CDB is uniquely positioned to do that. The next is Guyana will be hosting later this year the inaugural Global Biodiversity Alliance Conference. Again, the level of innovation that we're seeing coming out of Guyana is deeply heartening. But just in terms of how they're using the resources, these are a few examples. I don't know if you want to speak more to that, or if we could move on. But I think these are areas where we're seeing the benefits of this oil wealth being translated to the people of Guyana and ultimately will be transferred to the people of the region.
Thank you, President. I think you're doing a good job of handling the economics analysis. I'm wondering what I'm doing here. So let me just add by saying that very often the experience is that natural resource extraction can result in the rest of the economy, especially the export sectors, becoming uncompetitive by increasing prices generally and wages and competition for resources generally. Economists often refer to this as the resource curse or Dutch disease, if you like. I think what Guyana is doing well is seeking to mitigate those possibilities by improving the competitiveness of the country by building out infrastructure, creating new trade corridors, inherent, for example, in the road to Letem, Linden to Letem, and also, building out other aspects, including the social aspects of the economy. And I think that this augurs well for the mitigation of the possible impacts of what is referred to as the resource curse. So I think that that's, to my mind, that's credible. So I just wanted to add that to what the President said.
Thank you very much. We have two questions left from the online space. The first one from Julian Rogers for Caribbean Bridges is for our Director of Economics, Mr. Durant. You emphasize the need to reduce dependence on tourism for foreign exchange earnings. What are the most promising industries for diversification, and how can CDB support their development?
Thank you very much. I get this question a lot, and my response is always the same. As an economist, I would prefer not to pick winners, but rather to encourage the improvement in the ecosystem so that entrepreneurs who are absolutely creative in the region can identify the possibilities. And I'm going to emphasize that. I think it is important for us to build out that business and entrepreneurial ecosystem. There are opportunities out there. We are seeing quite a few of our entrepreneurs, extend or invest in other parts of the world. And we have the opportunity to allow those resources to be kept at home by improving the ecosystem. But I just want to say that, to my mind, there seems to be significant potential for building out supply chains in agro-processed goods. I think that if we can, in a coordinated way, build out our logistics infrastructure and connect the region better, that potential can be realized.
Thank you very much. The last question is from Vincent Diringer for Island Innovation, directed to Mr. Durant or Ms. Isaac or both. The question is, how do you see the recent changes in the development financing landscape affect climate and sustainability projects in the region in the short term? And do you expect a medium or long-term change in financing sources and overall investment? So I'm not sure which of you want to go first, Ms. Isaac?
I could always start and Ian can fill in. I want to start by saying it is important for the Caribbean countries to continually have access to reliable and affordable financing. And what the bank is doing, what we will continue to do, I will say we will continue to do what we have been doing, as well as use the new tools that we mentioned, like the Project Preparation Fund, and also our upgrade in accreditation for financing to support countries where some of those gaps lie. So we can't fill the entire gap. We talked about the importance of partnerships and collaboration to do so, but CDB, we will continue to do what we can to support our countries where we can provide financing.
Thank you, Ms. Isaac. Mr. Durant, do you want to come in?
Let me put on my climate finance hat. Just to add to that, what I'm going to emphasize is the cost of climate proofing infrastructure. Now, the President mentioned the more acute vulnerability of our countries to climate hazards, which means that we have to fortify our infrastructure in order to address the intensity and frequency, the increased intensity and frequency of these climate hazards. And obviously that imposes a cost to government who's building up this infrastructure. So it is critical that some of those costs are attractive of grant financing, as I said, to reduce the impact on debt and debt dynamics.
Thank you very much. President Best, would you like to have a final word in this round, or shall I close?
No, I just first want to thank certainly the journalists who've joined us here and online, and others who've joined us here and online. I want to thank the Caribbean public. I want to thank Caribbean people for staying with the CDB. I want to thank you for appreciating that we are indeed your development bank. And as each of my team members here on this stage, and I can speak for the entire bank, of course, said, we pledge our commitment to this region. And we appreciate that this is not an easy time. This is a challenging and uncertain time. And there's palpable fear and deep concern in the rank and file of people at all levels of the Caribbean population. But I want to assure you that we, as your development bank, we are here. This moment has come to us. And we will not turn away from this moment. We will not boast of the capital that we have been able to raise if it is not reaching you. We recognize the hurt, the pain, the concern that you have with respect to your family, your children, and what may happen next. What I want to assure you out there, regardless of if you are in the arts, in construction, in health services, or in education, whatever sector you may be in, I want to assure you that your Caribbean Development Bank, that our Caribbean Development Bank is here to fulfill its mandate. Its only mandate, really. And that is to serve you, to transform your lives and to make it just a bit easier to face another day. And I speak for the entire bank when I say nothing will ever cause us to resile or turn away from that. So in this moment, whatever you may be facing, know that your Caribbean Development Bank is there for you. And I want to thank you all, Caribbean people, this day. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for those inspiring words, President Best. This concludes the formal portion of our news conference. Today, we will now proceed to individual interviews. So if you have prearranged for a one-on-one interview, please remain in this room and our staff will assist you. Thank you once again for attending the Caribbean Development Bank's annual news conference, and we look forward to your continued interest and collaboration as we work towards a resilient and prosperous Caribbean. Have a great day. Thank you.